What's the business of venture capital? How can we give startups the best chance of winning big? And how can we increase the odds of making loads of money? I recently interviewed John Zeratsky, or Jay-Z, the real Jay-Z, if you like, who is the best-selling author of this book, Sprint, as well as Make Time, and is now co-founder and general partner of Character. Now, they're a new seed fund supporting founders with capital and sprints. I'll be telling you exactly what their strategy is to help startups win and make someone loads of money. Now, John Zeratsky is pretty well placed to do this.
I spent about 10 years designing and building new products and bringing those to market, initially at a startup in Chicago, then worked on a number of 0 to 1 projects inside of Google, including the YouTube channels platform. Then in 2011, I had the really unique opportunity to join Google Ventures. And GV was just a couple of years old at that time. They had this really interesting idea that they would have Google experts, designers, engineers, product managers, marketers, available to the companies that they were investing in. Not just to sit down for an hour and have an office hours session or something, but truly to have these people come inside the startup and help them succeed, improve their chances of success. It was around that time that we started talking with Jake Knapp, who had been running design sprints. He had created this process at Google, and we thought this could be a really good model for doing design work in a way that was very impactful. So it was really focused on the most important questions that these businesses faced, but also very scalable. So we recruited Jake to join our team at GV. This was in 2012. And we immediately grabbed onto the design sprint as our engagement model for supporting the portfolio companies, for helping them answer the big questions that they had and really de-risk their businesses, de-risk their products, de-risk how they were going to market with those products. And so we got a chance to work with some amazing companies. We worked with Slack, One Medical Group, 23andMe, a lot of really successful companies that were also really successful investments for Google Ventures. And we saw this opportunity to make Sprint, the design sprint method, not just a nice thing that we did after we invested, but really a part of the brand of GV and why people would want to raise money from us. So that led to writing the book, to putting out all of the content, to speaking at conferences and so on. That insight of, hey, this is a thing that is not just helpful after you invest, but helpful even before you invest, kind of stuck with me. And so fast forward a couple of years, Jake and I had both left GV. We had been doing a bunch of other projects. We got interested in starting something new together. We had teamed up with a friend and who's now our business partner, who had a background in venture capital investing. And we became interested in crafting an entire VC strategy around Sprint. Again, not just this nice value add after the fact, but really the source of competitive advantage for every single thing that we do as investors. And so that became really the foundation of Character.
Now, clearly, Jay-Z has had an incredible journey and is very well placed to help startups. But before we dissect the business model and strategy of Character, let's start off with what venture capitalists do and how they operate.
There are 3 important participants in the venture capital model. There's the startup founder, who is, for all intents and purposes, the customer of the venture capital business. They need money, they need capital to start their business because they are working on something that will require an unusually large team or long amount of time in order to prove the validity of the business. The product that they're buying is venture capital money, and the way that they're paying for that product is by exchanging a percentage of ownership of their business. They're giving up a little bit of equity in exchange for that cash. Then we have the venture capitalist, or the VC, or sometimes called the GP, which is short for general partner. What they're trying to do is they're trying to construct a portfolio of ownership positions in startups that they believe are going to turn into large, successful companies. And just like any investor, they're balancing risk and reward. They're looking for companies that are risky enough that if they turn out to be very successful, they're going to be very rewarding. They don't want safe bets. They need diversification. Again, just like any investor, they can't have all of their money riding on one company or even 10 companies. And then, of course, they want to do everything that they can do to help those startups succeed. So it's not just about making smart investing decisions, it's about helping those companies succeed. VCs essentially have their own investors, which are called limited partners, or LPs. These can be individual, high net worth individuals. These can be family offices. These can be large institutions, pension funds, endowments, foundations who want to invest in venture capital as a piece of their overall portfolio of investments. And it's a very specific piece. It's a piece that is, again, very risky, but potentially very rewarding. So an LP is not going to have all their money in venture capital, just as a venture capitalist is not going to have all their money in one startup. So there's kind of this cascading of risk and portfolio construction.
Now, just to bring that to life even more, I'm going to talk through the value proposition of venture capitalists in general using a kind of a modified value proposition canvas by Strategizer. And this shows the three participants in the VC model: the startup, the VC, and the limited partner. So here you can see those three different kind of participants or stakeholders. First of all, we have the startup themselves, the startup founder, if you like. Next, we have the limited partner, and then right in the middle is the venture capitalists themselves. Now, I've done it this way because essentially this is kind of like a two-sided marketplace, a multi-sided marketplace, with the venture capitalists sitting in the middle, and their job really is to help startups thrive, but also to help the LPs, the limited partners, to make lots of money. So let's start off with what the startup is really looking for. Now, their job to be done really is to kickstart their business, to get their business going, to start to build out the products, and ideally the ultimate job that they're looking for right now at this early stage is to find product market fit for the product that they've got. Now, the challenges that they have, those pains, are really that they need capital because there's a huge risk of failure. They don't really know what will work quite yet, so it's really difficult to be able to prioritize things, and they're working on something that requires kind of an unusually large team, an unusually long time to build something. It's not like your standard, corner shop or restaurant or anything else. But the gains that they're looking for is to build a product that people love and to reach that product market fit, but particularly looking for something that has, that exponential growth potential for the future. And they're also looking probably for a route for further funding. So that's the kind of customer segment of the value proposition canvas for the startup. If we zoom right over to the limited partner, they're looking to invest in a portfolio of investments, and at one end they have their seed capital or the venture fund that they're going to be supporting, and that's kind of high risk but high return. Now, they know that it's only about 1 in 10 they're actually going to really succeed, so they'll be looking for a broad portfolio of companies that can return that whole pot and more, maybe even 10x it. Right in the middle, this is where the kind of product of VC really is. We've got the venture capitalists. Their product is essentially cash, and they get the cash, of course, from the limited partners, but they're also offering more. They want to try to reduce the chances of failure. That's what their pain relievers are. But they also want to make sure they've got a diverse portfolio, as we heard, to avoid lots of failures. And they're looking to improve those odds of the big successes so they can really exceed the desired return that the LP might be looking for.
The business model of venture capital is that the GP, the venture capitalist, gets paid a management fee. So they get paid a percentage of the money that they're investing to do their job. Just as, again, any fund manager, you invest in a mutual fund or an ETF, the manager of that fund is getting some percentage of the assets as their salary. And then they have an incentive they have incentive pay, essentially. The VC is getting paid a percentage of any money that they make on those investments beyond paying back the capital to the LPs. So, if we invest in a company that is, we invest $1 million, and it, that gets us 10% ownership in that company. So let's say it's valued at $10 million. That business goes on to sell for $100 million. We get back $10 million. So we subtract our sort of initial investment, and the net that we've made is $9 million. So the first thing we do is we return that $1 million to all the investors, And then the 9 million, we keep a percentage of that. So we keep a small percentage of that as sort of our incentive payment for having made a successful investment. But the rest of it, the bulk of it, the vast majority of the money goes back to the original investors, the limited partners. So that's sort of the business model in a nutshell.
So to bring this even more to life, I'm going to walk through the full business model canvas of a kind of a standard venture capital firm. So in the middle section here, we're going to look at the key value propositions. And again, just to build on the work that we were doing earlier, this is about providing capital to enable startups to build a team and to provide the runway or time that they need in order to build the product. They're looking to support startups to improve their odds of success. Now, they do have 2 customer segments, of course, as we talked about, but for now, we're just going to focus on the startup founder. And the relationship essentially is that they own a part of the company. They take an ownership share within that company. But the ways that they interact with that customer, that startup founder, can vary depending on the VC firm that's operating. Sometimes it's very transactional. Sometimes it's about kind of the fiduciary duty, maybe getting a board seat within the organization, making sure that there is accountability on making sure that they're going to hit the goals and ideally turn the investment with 10x. Sometimes it's in a kind of advisory capacity, and sometimes it's a bit more hands-on with technical and managerial expertise and support for those early stage startups. Now, the key activities that these venture capitalists do is first they find startups with great potential and they support them in whatever mode they decide to improve the odds of success. Their resources, of course, they need someone and a team, fund managers, scouts to find the startups, and then the varying degree of support is the main focus that they're going to have. They will, of course, have board seats often, which means that kind of regular touch points, maybe it's quarterly or whatever else it is. Key partners, scouts, of course, they might have a broad range of advocates or scouts that are kind of looking for interesting startups. They'll have other VCs and accelerators where they might be taking companies on to the next level of funding, or they're using accelerators to kind of find people, find good startups to invest in. There's also probably key partnerships around mentors and advisors as well. Now, the cost structure, and this is the thing that remains consistent, as we'll hear from John Zeratsky shortly as well, is that the revenue streams for venture capital is basically twofold. Firstly, there's a management fee from the LP. There's also a percentage of the money that's made as a result of the exit from the startup. So again, if a startup goes through a series of funding rounds, they'll get a share of that return of the equity. However, the LP gets the majority. They get the lion's share of that profit, if you like. Now, the cost structure, essentially they're paying the salaries and general operational costs of the day-to-day running of the business.
We're not attempting to innovate on the business model of VC. We get paid in the same ways that every other VC gets paid. And that's important because the limited partners are also sort of buying a product that we're selling, which is our ability to produce returns. And so we want to have a unique strategy for how we are successful as investors. Where we're really focused on trying to be different and better is on the strategy of how we are successful as investors.
As JC just said they're not actually innovating the business model. I actually think they're not innovating around the revenue model of VC, but they are innovating around some of those other areas of the wider business model. The revenue model is staying the same, but they do have a unique strategy that they're executing that they hope means that they win big. Now, to bring this all to life, I'm going to overlay the 3 core elements of good strategy by Richard Rummelt. In this book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, he highlights that strategy is far more than a vision. In fact, it should include a diagnosis of the current situation, guiding policies that are like the core pillars that a company will focus on, and coherent actions that bring the policies to life and enable the company to effectively execute. So firstly, what's the diagnosis? Well, I think from talking to John, it's something like this. They need to enable potential high growth companies to join them and succeed. They've had huge experience of this at Google Ventures and have run hundreds of design sprints that have improved their chances of success. So they've got the experience and the processes that means they can be better than anyone in the world at early stage venture capital to support startups to reach product market fit. Notice this diagnosis talks to the vision, but also what makes them unique in the VC landscape. Let's hear about the guiding policies and actions directly from Jay-Z.
To be a successful VC, there's essentially four things that you need to be really good at. The first is finding opportunities. So finding companies to invest in. This is very interesting because VC is perhaps the only asset class where there are no records of all the companies. There are all the opportunities. There is no list of all the companies that you can invest in. And so you need to have a strategy. You need to have an edge, a way of finding companies. So that's the first thing is finding opportunities. The second is deciding which ones to invest in. This is the part that I think a lot of people focus on is, you've got to be smart. You got to make smart investments. You have to be smart about deciding which companies to invest in. The third thing is earning access to those opportunities. So this is another one of those weird things about VC compared to some other types of investing is that if I found you as a founder of a startup and I said, Spencer, the company you're building is amazing. I would like to invest in your company at these terms. You have every right and ability to say, no, thank you. I already raised money from these other investors, or actually, I don't like the terms. I don't like what you're proposing. And so you need to have a way of earning that access. And then finally, you need to be able to support those companies. And it really comes down to improving their odds of success, sort of taking them from whatever probability they had of succeeding when you made the investment and hopefully increasing that probability a little bit. So find the opportunities, decide which ones to invest in, earn access to make those investments, and then support those companies to improve their odds of success.
As it turns out, these four elements of the character strategy map directly onto the business model canvas. Firstly, the channels for reaching the startups is, of course, the channels section on the business model canvas. The experience they have in deciding who to invest in is part of the key resources and expertise that they already have. They're able to earn access to the startups by building those relationships through intensive sprints with each company. Finally, they're looking to seek to improve the odds of success as part of the key activities, basically by running sprints. Now let's hear specifically how design sprints impact each of these strategic guiding policies.
The way that we think about it is that there's something from the design sprint process and the sprint method that helps us be really great at all of those things. We think uniquely great. We think it gives us a really, really clear and important edge. When it comes to finding companies, perhaps it's self-explanatory, but we have the book that we've written that sold really well. We have the videos that exist. We have the articles. We have the hundreds and hundreds of presentations that we've given at conferences and at universities. We have our newsletters that have tens of thousands of people subscribe to them. And so we have people who know about us and reach out to us when they want to raise money. But we also have this really nice touchstone when we reach out to somebody that we don't already know, and then they say, "Oh, you're the sprint guys. You came from GV. I know about your story." And we also have all of the people who have been in all the sprints that we've run over those many years. So, at this point, I think we've done 200 sprints, something like that, with startups over the last decade. And so if you just assume for simple math, you assume there's 10 people in each of those sprints, there's 2,500 people who are either startup founders or early startup employees. So sprint gives us this really ability to find these opportunities. It gives us we think, a unique ability to decide, because we've seen a lot of these startup stories, both the successes and the failures, really up close in a very tangible way. We've actually had our hands on, let's make a thing and let's test it and let's see what happens. So it's given us really good intuition about what is likely to work. The other really interesting thing is that after we make an investment, let's say we start with a small investment in a company, we run sprints with them and we learn a lot about how they're doing. We get to see, again, up close, how does the team operate? How are customers reacting to what they're doing? And so when we want to make additional investments, our ability to decide whether to make those additional investments is very well informed by what we've learned from running those sprints. So it gives us a unique ability to decide. It gives us a unique ability to earn access. And this, again, is fairly simple, but hey, we're going to work with your team. We're going to run sprints hand in hand with your team to help you find product market fit, which is the most important thing to any early stage startup. Until you found product market fit, nothing else matters. And we're going to work hands-on with you using the sprint framework that you've seen work at hundreds of other successful companies. We're going to do that with you. That is a very unique pitch that most investors can't make and don't make. And so it does help us earn access to invest when we decide we want to make an investment. And then finally, after we invest, Sprint helps us support those companies. And I think this was the original sort of application of the design sprint at Google Ventures and the most obvious application. But it's basically, hey, if we can help you figure out in a couple of weeks instead of a couple of months whether you're on the right track, we can improve the cycle speed at which you operate as a founder. Then we're going to help you make more progress in less time. We're going to increase the chances that you find product market fit before you run out of money. And that is truly a game changer for startups at the very early stage. So sort of a long answer, but I wanted to lay out that framework of those 4 things that a VC needs to know how to do and to be really good at in order to sort of explain how the sprint method is tied into our strategy for each of those 4.
Now, you're probably not going to start a VC firm and compete with character. So what does this really mean for you? Here are 5 questions you can start to think about to help your business now. Number 1, how can you use sprints to help you get to product market fit, regardless of if you're in a startup or a corporate? Number 2, how can you use the VC model of many smaller bets and doubling down on the ones that really work? Number 3, how can you design a good strategy that works? Number 4, how can you use tools like the business model canvas, value proposition canvas, and the 3-part strategy to help your business grow and succeed? And number 5, how can you use an experimental mindset to start learning what's going to work? I really hope this video has been useful to you. I've covered a huge amount of ground in this one, and part of that was to show you the kind of work that I do beyond the podcasts and other videos that you might have seen. If you're interested in that kind of work, check out the link in the description and at the end of this video. Thanks so much. Take care.